we are hopeful that because of all the work that we are doing, we'll be able to buck that trend this year and do better.
Infosys beats the street in the second quarter. Dollar revenues rise by 6%, the best in 4 years. But the stock takes a beating as the company updates its FY16 guidance, citing forex movements. The CFO Rajiv Bansal resigns, the second high-profile exit in 3 months.
It's the largest technology deal ever. Dell inks an agreement to buy computer data storage firm EMC for a whopping $67 billion.
Growth engines are starting to fire. Industrial production accelerates 6.4% in August, the highest in 3 years. Retail inflation quickens to 4.4% as the base effect wins.
Sporadic violence mars the first phase of voting in Bihar, but 57% turn out to cast their vote. Women outnumber men, with nearly 60% of them casting their ballot.
There has to be a better system of surveillance which is more real time.
The Reserve Bank is closely watching the situation at Bank of Baroda, says Deputy Governor S.S. Mundra. The stock takes a beating, closes 3% lower as the CBI probes allegations of black money transfer of over 6,000 crore rupees.
Trouble for Hindalco. The Supreme Court gives the CBI the go-ahead to probe charges of bribery. A diary found in Hindalco's office premises is at the center of the investigation.
Are you genuinely saying that AirAsia is today an Indian carrier?
SpiceJet's Ajay Singh backs for a level playing field before new airlines are allowed to fly international. Rules out any stake sale for now as he expects the Indigo IPO to boost the sector's valuations. Plans to place orders for over 100 new aircraft this financial year.
Trucks entering Delhi will pay an environmental surcharge of up to 1,300 rupees as the Supreme Court cracks the whip to clean up the world's most polluted city's air.
And Scottish economist Angus Deaton wins the Nobel Prize for Economics. He's famous for writing a report on India and how lower calorie intake is a sign of poverty.
मेरे कार को घर के बाहर ही शिवसेना के सैनिकों ने रोका और मुझे बाहर आने के लिए कहा। मुझे पकड़कर मेरे ऊपर काला ऑयल पेंट उन्होंने फेंक दिया। मैं डरने वाला नहीं हूं। ये जो तिरंगा है, ये तिरंगे का अपमान है। भारत का लोकतंत्र इसका अपमान है और ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए।
Who has done it, I do not know. Therefore, I cannot name anyone. I do not want to name anyone. But whosoever has done it has besmirched the good name of the country.
डरता तो मैं जेलों में न जाता, डरता तो मैं पुलिस के डंडे न खाता। तो मैं यहाँ लड़ने नहीं आया, मैं अमन का पैगाम देने आया हूँ। और हाँ, राइट इनका, इन्होंने मुझे बुलाया, रिकैंसल करते कर दे, लेकिन मैंने इनको लेट डाउन नहीं करना। हर बंदे का राइट है प्रोटेस्ट करना, वो प्रोटेस्ट करे। बट व्हाट्स हैपेंड टू मिस्टर कुलकर्णी is, I think, beyond that legitimate right.
It's a black day for Mumbai, India and democracy. A bunch of Shiv Sena workers attacking activist Surendra Kulkarni with black paint. His only fault inviting former Pakistani Foreign Minister Khurshid Kasuri to launch his book in Mumbai. It was not the face of Mr. Kulkarni, it was free speech that was blackened this evening. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Nandara.
Hi, Shireen. I can't help wondering, is the Shiv Sena slowly emerging as the Kap Panchayat of the financial capital? However, the book launch went as planned.
Well, absolutely. We do have all of that and more coming up for you, but let's get started. It is earnings season. Kicking things off was Infosys, and it did it in style. For the second time in a row, Infosys has beaten street expectations with its quarterly performance. Dollar revenues growing by 6%, the highest in the last 16 quarters. In constant currency terms, that's a growth of 6.9%. The rupee revenues coming in at 6%, and net profit jumping a sharp 12%. The IT giant has also maintained its 10 to 12% constant revenue guidance. However, Purnima Murli and Kritika Saxena report that the celebration has been bittersweet. Here's why.
It's been a win-some, lose-some quarter for IT bellwether Infosys. First, the wins. In a clear sign that a revival is underway, Infosys saw $983 million worth of new deals being won. a steady growth of up to 10% by its top 10 clients, and a 2.5% improvement in pricing. Now the not so good news. The company is bracing for seasonal headwinds it will face in the third and fourth quarter of the financial year. So the management, which was expected to revise guidance, has maintained its guidance in constant currency terms at 10 to 12%. But MD and CEO Vishal Sikka says he is working on a strategy to overcome seasonal headwinds and beat that guidance.
There was 7.2 to 9.2 on June 30 currency. It is that currency change now because of the fluctuations in the currency markets. And so that is on September 30 terms, it is 6.4 to 8.4 or whatever. But on constant currency, the guidance is what it has been since the beginning of the year, which is 10 to 12% constant currency growth in revenue.
So just clarification again, you have not cut the dollar revenue guidance in any way?
We have not cut the dollar revenue guidance in any way.
The other big positive for the company has been that attrition has come down to 14%. And Chief Operating Officer Praveen Kumar is confident a further fall is definitely on the cards.
Last quarter it was 14.2, it's 14.1. So we are already in that range. And we'll continue. It's not that we are declaring victory and all. We will continue with various initiatives to continue to engage with people.
Volumes, however, have been a bit of a letdown. At 3.7%, volume growth in the second quarter is lower than the 5% clocked in the previous quarter. In addition, the management admits that despite pricing growth in the current quarter, it expects to see some pricing pressure where large deals are concerned.
Overall, in terms of Q3 and Q4, we see that seasonal dip, but we are working very hard to make sure that we buck that trend.
But here's the development that has stunned the street. Infosys will say farewell to CFO Rajiv Bansal, who has decided to step down after 16 years with the company. He will hand over charge to MD Ranganathan. Experts say Bansal's exit raises questions as to whether the company, which has still not found stable ground, will be able to cope with yet another management change. But both Bansal and the incoming CFO say they're not worried.
Finance team and the finance strategy of the company has already been very, very solid. There is no need to change anything. So I think the focus of hedging strategy has always been on predictability of cash flows. We'll continue to focus on that. At this point in time, I do not foresee a significant change in our hedging strategy.
Maintaining cash flow without hurting margins or growth may not be that easy.
The next 2 quarters will see Infosys facing pressure from some key verticals like retail and energy. Energy, for instance, is expected to remain sluggish till the end of next year. The company expects immediate pressure to come from some clients in the banking vertical, which could derail growth trajectory. However, the company has announced an incentive structure for its sales executives in an effort to offset these pressures and says it will concentrate on accelerating automation across verticals and winning some large deals to keep its growth promises. With Kritika Saxena in Bengaluru, Purnama Murli.
The highlights the quarter that's gone by for Infosys. Now, even though the Infy stock was under pressure, brokerages remain upbeat. The street was surprised by the guidance, but that did not spook them completely. Rima Tendulkar joining us with the details of what brokerage firm said what. Rima, the common theme seems to be that brokerages are shaken but not stirred.
Yes, indeed. They're very happy with the Q2 performance, but they are negatively surprised that why the company, after a strong Q1 and Q2, didn't raise its FY16 constant currency guidance. But I'll take you through that. So I'll start with Kotak. They say that they've reported an excellent broad-based revenue growth. It's been helped by higher billing rates and milestones in key projects, which is why they maintain their positive view on the stock and they retain their ad rating. They are surprised at the implied weak second half H2 FY16 against the backdrop of strong deal signings. Remember, deal signings in this quarter were $983 million, and that would paint a prettier picture and give you revenue visibility about the coming quarters. But despite that, their guidance implies a weak second half. The senior management attrition is also a concern because Rajiv Bansal resignation comes on the back of the exit of Sanjay Jalona, who was the head of manufacturing, and he quit just a few months back. JP Morgan also says that we're now seeing consistency in Infosys performance. They're surprised that Infosys has kept its FY16 constant currency guidance unchanged, and that points to a subdued H2 of FY16. Though that said, they believe that the street estimates will be at the upper end of the guided range. They stay overweight with their target price of $12.50. Barclays says this confusion presents an opportunity, so they maintain their overweight stance in the stock. And Bank of America Merrill Lynch also reiterates that how revenues and operating margins are ahead of expectations, but the CFO resignation is the second senior exit in the last 3 months. And it also said that they'll watch out for the sustainability of the uptick in realizations that we've seen this quarter. So that's the view from Bank of America Merrill Lynch. Back to you.
All right, Reema, thanks very much for giving us an update on what brokerages make of those numbers. So Infosys is done and dusted. Industry leader TCS will report Q2 earnings tomorrow. A CNBC TV 18 poll predicts dollar revenues to grow by 3.6% and rupee revenues by over 6%. Now, both of these estimates are below what Infosys has managed to clock in its second quarter. However, margins are expected to be around 27%. That is higher than Infosys, so watch out for TCS tomorrow. The guidance revision from Infosys, or the guidance updation, which is what the company is calling it, did dampen sentiment on the Lal Street a little bit. The Sensex tumbling below 27,000, down 175 points, but profit booking really coming in on Infosys. The stock has rallied quite significantly. The Nifty lost about 50 points as selling pressure mounted in the last hour, which nullified that strong opening. Mid-caps faring slightly better than the blue chips, ending with marginal losses. But on to the big story tonight on the macro economy. Definitely good news for the government, for industry, and for the markets. The August IIP has sprung a surprise, coming in at a near 3-year high. So while September consumer price index has also come in at just below 4.5%, that's pretty much along expected lines. Lata joins us now to take us through the complete breakup of those numbers. Lata, these numbers will definitely keep the spirits high in North Block.
6.4%, the IIP number certainly brings a smile, and even if you looked at the April-August number, it's come in at 4.1%, which is fairly good. And if it's ticking higher, then perhaps we can expect a low to high single-digit growth in industrial output. The biggest contribution has come from manufacturing. Electricity at 5.6% is not very exciting because we did double-digit growth last year, 2014, for electricity. So 5.6 is not terribly exciting. But manufacturing at 6.9% has been abated by two pillars. One, capital goods, which has grown at 22%, 21.8 to be precise, and consumer durables, which have grown at 17%. Even if you remove base effects, it means that for both these indices, the growth has been around 7%, which is not a bad tick at all. Even on the inflation front, we have notched up about 4.41 against expectations of 4.49, or actually 4.5. It would be wrong to say that inflation is higher at 4.4 compared to the August number, because August was impacted by a very huge base effect. Technically speaking, if you remove the base effect, the inflation is not at all high, even for the month of September. So inflation at 4.41 is something you will take with both hands. And in particular, food inflation at 3.88, while it looks again worse than the month ago number of 2.2, what you should remember is that previous month, you had a very huge base effect which made the food inflation look good. Here, without the base effect and despite onions and pulses not cooperating, you've got a 3.88 number. Actually, it looks like the onion and vegetable prices are very much under control, as you can see. Unchanged vegetable prices month on month, which means no inflation at all. It is only pulses, which is galloping at 30%, that has caused this food inflation. So it is a one-point problem, which probably can be corrected by imports. Short point, there isn't much for the bond markets to react, because inflation is almost in line with expectations, just about 8 basis points lower than our poll. And the governor has already said that he has front-loaded the rate cuts. So you don't expect any reaction on the bond market front, but for the equity markets, this is a very big cheer that's coming from the IIP, that growth is better than most forecasts had indicated, and that coming with a slightly lower than expected inflation for the month of September would mean a slightly higher equity market opening tomorrow, other things being equal.
CPI inches up, IIP comes in as a surprise. Thanks, Lata, for joining us with that analysis. Well, on to Deal Street, and this is the largest deal in the technology sector. Dell has signed an agreement to buy computer data storage firm EMC for a staggering $67 billion. This deal eclipses the Avago Technologies' $37 billion takeover of rival Broadcom. Now, Michael Dell and Joe Taki of EMC spoke to CNBC exclusively just a short while back on the deal contours.
Thank you for being here. Just as this news is being announced, we appreciate it. Walk us through how this happened.
Well, good morning, Andrew, Joe, Becky. We're really pleased to be with you this morning. About a year ago, I contacted Joe, and we had a number of conversations. We entered into an NDA with the board of EMC, and we've been having productive discussions over the course of this year, leading us to this great day here where we're creating an unbelievable powerhouse of an enterprise company. And so, you know, and I would also say that our companies have had a history of working together. We started back in about 2002, and for about a decade worked together. At one point, the relationship was about a $2 billion annual run rate. And, you know, this is really all about bringing together complementary technologies and helping our customers address the challenges and opportunities that this digital future is creating.
Right. Before I get to Joe, real quick, Michael, just to the extent that this transforms Dell, just speak to that, what's going on in the IT industry and specifically the PC business, which of course is your namesake. It's what we think of when we think of Dell, but it seems to be moving in a new place now.
Sure. Well, I think, you know, IT for a long time has been about how do you make old processes more efficient. But with all of the progress in digital technology, there is a kind of digital transformation that's occurring. And you see it with the explosion in the number of devices. You see it in the explosion in the number of applications. This is creating enormous amounts of data. You hear topics like big data, the Internet of Things. All of this has to be turned into results and outcomes and success for companies. And so there's both pressure on the legacy environments and a need to enter this new age. And the combined company really has a fantastic set of capabilities to help customers do that. So it absolutely does advance the journey that we've been on for quite some time. And I think we can bring customers to the future faster.
Well, what a story there for Michael Dell. Takes the company private, company that he founded, and then inks the largest technology deal at $67 billion with EMC. But let's move on to the other big story that we're tracking very closely. Polling, first phase of elections in Bihar, the turnout an encouraging or a historic 57% as the Election Commission calls it. This despite instances of some degree of violence marring polling in areas. Here's a wrap of the day's events.
जब आपने वोट दिया, क्या सोचकर वोट दिया? वोट देने का मतलब था बस हमारा परिवर्तन। हम लोग के लिए कुछ हो रहा है, बिजली पानी ये सब वोट देंगे, करेंगे तो हम लोग को अच्छा लग रहा है।
After a high-pitched campaign, the ultimate test of political parties now begins. Long queues, the voting percentage of 57% shows that Biharis in 49 of 243 constituencies voted and voted aggressively.
Long queues outside the polling station as the polling begins for the first phase of polls of the Bihar polls, and we are right now in Jammu. You can see a long queue outside the polling station.
It was in these parts where the JDU-BJP combined had done very well in 2010 when the two parties were in an alliance together, and it's exactly here where the numerical arithmetic of the castes or the constituencies which are being represented by the RJD and the JDU, which are at play here at their fiercest.
विकास का मतलब कि रोड ये और फिर पढ़ाई लिखाई शिक्षा ये सब अच्छा होना चाहिए। जी, विकास का अर्थ है जैसे कि सबसे पहले तो बिजली होना चाहिए।
होना चाहिए बिजली।
हाँ, इसके बाद हॉस्पिटल में बिल्कुल सुविधा नहीं है सरकारी हॉस्पिटल में।
The polling coming in the backdrop of a sting operation of a senior JDU minister supposedly accepting a bribe. The video going viral on social networking sites on the eve of the first phase. An embarrassed Nitish Kumar may have stopped the resignation of Avdesh Prasad Kushwaha, also replacing his candidature from Pipra in West Champaran. But the damage was already done. The BJP exploiting the issue.
मैं तो टीवी पे देखा रात को मुंबई से आने के बाद 4 लाख रुपया जेपी के जन्मदिन पर, जब तक भारतीय जनता पार्टी यहां सरकार का हिस्सा थी तब तक तो कोई स्टिंग ऑपरेशन नहीं हुआ।
सुशील मोदी जी ने मॉफ करके अगर जो मैसेज लगा सकता है तो वो पार्टी तो कुछ भी कर सकती है।
The high stakes battle for Bihar has begun. It's a state election that will set the discourse for the nation, and hence all eyes would be on 8th when the votes would be counted.
From politics over the beef ban to caste-based reservation to a fear of return of Jungle Raj to a bribery scandal. the high-stakes battle for Bihar has only just begun. With Maria Shakil in Bhagalpur, this is Arunodaya Mukherjee.
So what do the elections mean from a national standpoint? Two things are clear. This will be a referendum of sorts for the Modi government, and Nitish Kumar and Lalu Prasad Yadav had their political careers at stake. Joining us now, N. Ram, the chairman of the Hindu Group, Girish Kubir, editor of Lok Sakta, senior journalist and columnist Swapan Das Gupta, and our very own Bhupendra Chaube joining us from Patna. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us. Bhupen, if I can come to you, you know, in that report that we just played out, and you, Maria, and your team out there speaking to voters today, and the call for Parivartan, the question now is, what does Parivartan mean for the state of Bihar?
Yeah, that's the whole question. What exactly is the definition of Parivartan? Now, if you were to be speaking to representatives of the JDU, they are looking at this 8% surge within the voting that has been witnessed today as a vote for Nitish Kumar. Conventional political wisdom would suggest that whenever there is a high voting percentage, it usually is against the incumbent government. So, are people voting for the Vikas model of Nitish Kumar? Are people voting for the Vikas model of Narendra Modi? Where exactly this sting operation, which has suddenly emerged on the eve of polling, how does that impact the model of Vikas which is being hyped up by Nitish Kumar? This Bihar election is a fascinating election for multiple reasons, Shireen. One of those being that while all parties are talking about development, this is an election which is not being fought on development, and people are not necessarily looking at development as an issue. The issues which are at play, frankly, are caste, religion, polarization. Just look at the commentary which is being offered by leaders on all sides, whether it's the Grand Secular Alliance or it's the NDA. You know, cow, beef, all kinds of things which are being talked about. So where exactly is development related to this? I'm not quite sure on that.
All right, Bhupen, I'll keep coming back to you. Hang in there. Let me go across to N. Ram, chairman of the Hindu Group. Mr. Ram, appreciate you joining us here. Let me ask you first to comment on the turnout figures. Very high turnout, historic, as the Election Commission is calling it, at 57%. A very high turnout for women, outpacing the number of men, at coming in at almost 60%. What does this mean? Is this an advantage Nitish, or is it advantage Narendra Modi?
I think people will say we have no clue unless we have more data on this. I don't think it's worthwhile speculating on which way it will go. Normally a high turnout would mean either a protest vote or a sympathy vote. So we don't know here what's at stake. So I would say that nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Girish Kubir, would you like to take a shot at that? Because the BJP certainly seem to believe that if it was a high turnout, it would mean advantage BJP. Do you think that that still holds true?
No, I don't think so it will be. There are instances where high turnout had showed it's gone in favor of the incumbent government. So it will be a highly risky business to predict which way it will go.
All right, Swapan Das Gupta, you know, this was a stronghold in the 2010 election. 29 seats won by the BJP-Nitish alliance at that point in time. Of course, the erstwhile alliance then. But, you know, as polls seem to suggest, some are saying it's neck to neck, some are saying advantage NDA. But do you really believe that it is neck and neck at this point in time? Or do you believe that it is a clear advantage for the NDA, as some polls seem to suggest?
Shireen, you know what happens is that at this stage of the contest, there are enough undecided voters to make it so that when opinion polls are taken, you get a sense of neck and neck. But what happens is that on the day of polling, there obviously happens a certain degree of advantage on the side which is seen to be slightly ahead, and that translates into quite a decisive advantage when the number of seats are actually calculated. So at this point, any election looks very tight. But in hindsight, we might say, oh, well, you know, it was clear in any case. But it's never clear before the votes are counted. And that's a feature of elections. And I think all the pundits, I don't think anybody is actually trying to contrive an element of drama when they say it's neck and neck. Because there is that undecided element which actually votes on the day, I mean makes up its mind, you know, more or less when they are faced with the machine.
They're absolutely right, and it's a 1 month long election with 5 phases. We're only done with phase 1. But Swapan Dasgupta, let's talk about the Modi factor. The Prime Minister has virtually been carpet bombing Bihar with rallies, but one gets the sense that there is disappointment. There is that promise versus Jumla argument. Let's just take one example of the 15 lakhs per account that was supposed to have come in from the recovery of black money. Do you see this expectation not matching up with reality as being a little bit of a dampener? And also the second question, there is no clear chief ministerial candidate as far as the BJP is concerned, whereas as far as the Grand Alliance goes, there is Nitish Kumar. Is that going to prove to be a disadvantage for the BJP?
Shireen, my take on this election is that, ironically, what we are seeing, at least as far as the public response to the meetings are concerned, is that Modi is popular, but Nitish is also popular in their own different ways. Now what I think is going to happen is both of them, in their own respective ways, face certain disadvantages. For Modi, the issue is, yes, he's the Prime Minister, he has a measure of popularity, there are large expectations from it, maybe some of it unfulfilled, but how will that translate into governance of Bihar? As far as Nitish is concerned, I think there is a sense in which Nitish is seen as a reasonably good administrator, having done very well for the past 8-10 years when he's been in office. But how will that translate when it comes to an alliance with Lalu, his sort of sworn enemy? So both the sides, while they have distinct advantages, are also burdened with certain baggage which they have to face. So whether sort of both sides get neutralized or not, I don't know. But remember, the issue is, while both have a measure of anti-incumbency, if Modi is thought to have not delivered on every promise which he made in the general election, Nitish Kumar is also burdened by the fact that his promise of actually ensuring electricity, which he had promised in 2010, that remains unfulfilled. So again, the word Jumla has come into play, but there is an element of Jumla in all elections. The question is, the discerning voters will actually have to separate which are the relevant ones from which are the hyperbolic overstatements which are there during any election campaign.
Ram, let me put that question to you. How are you reading the Modi factor and how that will play out as far as the Bihar elections go? And, as my colleague Shreya Dondial told me a short while ago, the debate is also centered on this issue of Bahari versus Bihari as well.
You see, there's no doubt that in the Lok Sabha election of 2014, there was a Modi wave. There is no question about it. And that accounts for a large part of the 31 seats out of 40 that the BJP and allies won at that point. Today, he's no longer running for Prime Minister. And secondly, there has been a loss of sheen. We don't know to what extent, but we know that it's not the same as when it started. So there's no, and I would go on to say, I'd venture to say, there is no Modi wave today, but there is a Modi factor, which still is a plus factor for the BJP. So that's, it can't be the same. And then the arithmetic has changed in favor of the JDU alliance, JDU and allies. So I think, and of course the media, I agree with Swapan about one thing that, people, when journalists, newspapers and television channels say too close to call or neck and neck, it is journalists for, we have no clue. We have no clue about what's going to happen, so they're hedging their bets. The polls are totally, wildly, at variance with one another. So this is an interesting election, but I agree with Swapan that when the votes are counted, including for the reason he gave, I suspect that one or the other will get a majority. It will not be a hung assembly, because there are two main alliances in the fray. Yeah.
That's right, and that was the point that in fact Sandeep Shastri made on the channel with us just a short while ago, that whichever way it swings, it will be a clear vote in one side. But let me come to you, Girish. You know, as Bhupen was telling us that that the debate has swung from the development agenda, the development card, which was really what we saw the BJP pushing, the Prime Minister pushing during the 2014 general elections, now down to a very vicious caste and class debate. How do you see that working as far as the arithmetic is concerned, and also the chemistry of the Grand Alliance? Will it deliver on the arithmetic?
I'm sure that's the thing that will work in Bihar. We gave a lot of coverage about the development agenda and all those things. But my experience on the ground and the total kind of a feeling, it says that it was too much of a facade, and facade from it created by the media. There was always this agenda, but we thought Modi will bring and the change, and it will be only development agenda. That's not the case. That never was the case, even during that particular election. So the caste and other issues will play major role, and not only in Bihar and the elections from here onwards. Then the next is Punjab, and then Tamil Nadu, and again Uttar Pradesh in 2017. So this is the issue we will have to tackle, and there is too much of emphasis on the development agenda, which will not be the case in the future election.
Absolutely not the case as far as the ground reality is concerned. But Swapan Das Gupta, back to you. Let's for a minute assume that the electoral result does not go in favor of the BJP. Will that further dampen the enthusiasm of the government at the centre to try and push through what was being seen as bold, decisive action, especially as far as the economic agenda is concerned? I mean, things like the GST may get stalled, for instance, even further if the BJP feels like it's lost more political capital. How do you see the electoral result, if it's not in favor of the BJP, playing out at the centre?
Well, I don't know about this. I don't know this question of big ticket reforms, and they've never actually been able to understand what it exactly means. At present, I think really the reform which is expected by everyone, which everyone looks forward to with a great deal of hope, etc., which has been dampened because it was thought to be there, is the GST issue. Now, a victory for Modi, I think, will make it relatively easier for him to actually get the GST through in the Rajya Sabha. But a defeat, I think, would mean that the scenes which we saw in Parliament in the previous session are more or less repeated with added embellishments of some other issues, etc., etc. So I think, yes, you're right in saying that this Bihar election is important in the short term in trying to create the political atmospherics, because a defeat for the BJP will certainly embolden the opposition. They will now calculate, and they are calculating, that if Modi loses, we can transform the Modi government into a lame duck government before even it has completed 2 years. Now, the prospect of that for India is quite horrific, but I think, therefore, the stakes are very high for Modi. You know, it's not merely a question of winning or losing, but it's also a question of winning by how. Even if Modi was to do, if BJP was to do very well, but just narrowly fail to squeak home, that would be an all right thing for it. But an outright defeat would be catastrophic, in my view, for them.
And Ram, the final word to you, would an outright defeat for the BJP in Bihar be catastrophic, as Swapan has just called it?
Yes, it will be, because the message will go out. These guys are not here for 10 years, 5 years, and that's it. That will be the opposition will be emboldened. They would have tasted blood. But let me add that even if the JDU alliance loses, it'll still look better than it was in 2014. So they'll get a lot out of it, and they'll still be emboldened, although not as much as they would with a decisive defeat for the BJP. So either way, I think the JDU alliance has an advantage, unless they are routed, which I don't think anyone is predicting.
Well, all we can say with certainty today is that the voter turnout has been historic at 57%. Beyond that, everything else is in the realm of speculation and will continue to be for the next 1 month. Bhupendra Chaubey, Swapan Das Gupta and Ram Girish Kubir, appreciate you joining us here on India Business Hour to decode the implications of the Bihar elections. We do have to take a quick commercial break, but when we return, there's trouble for Hindalco. The Supreme Court gives the CBI the go-ahead to probe charges of bribery. Details when we return.